about his, probably I won't present his interests, but he's a researcher fellow at the Research Center for Manor Houses in the Baltic Sea region at Greifswald University under the direction of Professor Dr. Wilke. And his research interests concentrate on architecture in early modern age, 16th, 18th century. And we have to add that Thomas is historian and architect.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Dear organizer, in this case, thank you very much for the invitation, and also thanks for the introduction. As you've heard, I'm part of the research team of the Research Center for Manors in the Baltic Sea region at Claes University, and I take the first minutes of this presentation to tell you something about the research project that started at the beginning of 2022, and we are now on the finishing line till the end of October this year. So we had 4 years of funding, and it was funded in equal parts by the land Mecklenburg-Vorpommern, which is a land in Germany, and the German government. A team of 8 art historians, you can see them here on this picture, researched under the direction of Kilian Heck around 20 exemplary manor houses of the 18th century in 9 countries next to the Baltic Sea. And we had 2 main tasks in this research project. The first task was to document as many manors as possible during the project time for our web portal, where you can see the front page, the main landing page, and use this web portal as the databases for further research. And we put in fundamental data for each manor house we documented, so like the geolocation, the name, the condition of the building and the gardens, and so on. This was one task. And the other was our research interest not concentrated on the manor house itself, but at the estate as a whole. So we not just concentrated on the main building, we also included sociological, functional, and economical questions concerning, for example, family networks or the eventual use of model designs and so on. For our research data, we cooperated with several institutions, which you can see listed on the top, that helped us with the technical aspects of the research, because we are more or less, apart from me, we are all art historians. I'm also an art historian, I'm also an architect with another, let's say, another eye for the matter. For example, the geological department of Greifswald University provided us with geo-information, and together with the Vienna Institute of Archaeological Science, they used various imaging methods like laser scanning, you can see the laser on the table there, and drone flights to document the manor houses. And here is the way the scanner goes through a manor house. In the middle you can see a 3D model of a Stola manor, and on the far corner on the right there you can see a 3D model of Stola manor. And this is above the ground, and there is also another documentation technique we used, which is common in archaeological research, but we used it for the manor house research. So it was performed by GeoC Austria. You can see this blue slash in the upper right corner. They scan the the grounds with ground-penetrating radar to document hidden structures in the grounds, like old foundations or old garden layouts. And at some research point we had really amazing results. When you scroll down on the main page, and this Scan Me really actually leads you to our web page, you can see a map with the pins of the houses we researched, and in the middle, in the Swedish lowlands, you can see Stola manor. So you can reach these case studies in this way, but you also can use the top line and scrolling down the pull-down menu of case studies, and you see the various countries, and then you select Sweden and go to the Swedish examples there. One is missing, Österbybruk should be there as well. And then you would come to the main page of the house, and we have on the left side also the sub-chapters which are describing our research, and by this way I elegantly presented the project, and now we have reached the topic of my speech today: Stola manor in Sweden, Grandeur in the countryside. Stola estate belonged to the Ekeblad, a family for many generations since the late 15th century. Ekeblad translates to oak leaf, so the oak tree is the signature tree of the family. I'm not going to talk about the older family, but concentrating on the three owners in the 18th century and their influence on the estate. From the builder of the new manor house, Claes Ekeblad the Elder, to his son, Claes the Younger, who had the interiors redecorated and also started remodeling the gardens as well, to the last Ekeblad at Stola, Claes Julius. So the manor is situated in the central Swedish lowlands next to the Vänern sea, and so it's really rural Sweden, and approximately 375 kilometers from Stockholm, which you can see only in the middle on the upper part. This is quite important because it's really countryside, and on the other hand, many members of the family held military or court positions or worked in the royal government, so they often had to be present in the capital. This is, for example, true with Johan Ekeblad, who is the owner in the late 17th century, and he was employed by Queen Christina of Sweden, and also was chamberlain to Queen Hedvig Eleonora. And he founded the library at Stola Manor, and he was famous in Sweden as one of the great letter writers of the time, really as famous as Madame de Sévigné or Lieselotte of the Palatinate in France. So there are dozens of his letters where he is spreading out his view of the world. When he inherited Stola Manor in 1664, he drew a sketch of the estate that shows the previous manor house and the farm buildings around a courtyard with a small garden which is on the lower left corner. And as you can see, there is another map of Stola's property and the sea islands. That is how this inscription above translates. And it is an isometric display, and zooming in, you can see, well, the old manor was not very representative. So that is probably why, after marrying Hedvig Myrna of Morlanda, of a rich and influential noble family, Claes Ekeblad the Elder decided to renew his ancestral home, taking in modern influences from Central Europe, but also local traditions for his new home. And this house is especially interesting because it is a rare example of an early 18th century manor built in Sweden during the period of the Great Northern War. Usually in wartime you don't have any man to build the house, you have no material, you have no money. That is the usual situation. He managed anyway, probably because of his rich wife. I don't know exactly. And the cornerstone plate in the northern wall, I apologize for the not really clear picture, but there is this transcription, and it states the date of June 1713 as the starting date for the house, and names also the local builder Hårleman SBM, which is short for byggmästare, builder in Swedish. There was always a discussion if a local builder actually could have made the layout of this house, because there are no original designs of this manor house have survived. Nevertheless, the layout was a little altered since then and shows an imperfect symmetry. If you look at the lower plan, you can see the middle axis and two more or less equal parts. And this layout is quite special because it has a very modern, for the time, very modern internal communication system for the servants, here marked in yellow, which is in French called dégagement, which means the servants are moving behind the scenes and will not disturb the other inhabitants of the house. When the house was finished in 1718 or 19, Claes Ekeblad was also becoming count in Greve, and he also was named a Councillor of State, Riksråd, in the same year. So the Count therefore definitely knew the so-called Riddarhuset building in Stockholm that housed the parliament of the nobles of that time, and you can see it here in a print and also a photography. And this building could have been the model to Stola Manor with its 4 pavilions at each corner and the so-called sattery roof. So here you can see these, it's two stories, it's a kind of mansard roof, but a little bit different. And in this wall which divides the two roofs, there are usually some windows to let in the light. Oops. So I have some problems with the technique because I use an Apple computer. Okay. So the resemblance of the layout is quite striking, and furthermore, this design of the Riddarhuset was available in print. So even a local builder like Hårleman could have obtained it, or his builder, Claes Ekeblad, could have brought it to the countryside to decide, well, build me a house like this, with this layout, central building and 4 pavilions in the corners. Of course, the rural variant of this building design was more modest in Stola, with no pilasters or pediments like at the Riddarhuset. Nevertheless, it connected the new building with the Riddarhuset in the capital and brought Grandeur to the countryside, because this is quite a presumptuous layout. But the decoration of the new house not only referred to national or even international models, because the Riddarhuset being influenced by German and Dutch designs, the decoration of the central hall in Stola reconnects strongly with local traditions. Stola is situated in the vicinity of Wilke Castle. As you can see on the map, it's not very far, and it is an imposing structure that belonged to the De la Gardie family in the 17th century, and it was mainly decorated in the second half of this century after model designs of the French engraver Jean Lepôtre, who created really innumerable designs in the Louis XIV style that were spread all around Europe. You can see his plafond moderne in black and white, and the executed ceiling at Stola, which is really so close that it's really incredible to see that I laughed when I first visited Stola Castle, because it's the prints built in 3D, because my PhD thesis was about these topics, prints for the interior decoration. The central hall in Stola, mainly the ceiling, was decorated in this manner in the second decade of the 18th century. So we are in 1720, around that time. And at that time, this style was really quite outdated, at least in Central Europe. And we can probably therefore interpret it as a distinct local reference. On the other hand, there may be a more profane explanation that is true. It simply may have been the lack of suitable painters capable of more modern designs. We'll never know. Claes Ekeblad the Younger also had an important political career. Before being ambassador to the French court in Paris and Versailles, he married Eva de la Gardie in 1741, and she was a formidable woman of the wealthy and influential de la Gardie family, who owned also Lekue Castle. And she was, for example, the first woman to be named member of the Swedish Academy of Science, which a position she held until the early 20th century, when Marie Curie was appointed to the Academy. So really very impressive. Those spouses were very much interested in science and expanded the Stola collections and library further, that was founded by his grandfather Johann Ekeblad. In the summer, renowned researchers visited Stola. For example, Carl Linné, the well-known naturalist, he mentions Stola in his West Gothland travels, and also a Peter Elvius, an astronomer and mathematician, visited, and he determined the latitude and the longitude of Stola really with astonishing precision during his visit in 1748, and this is the memorial stone now placed in Stola in the entrance hall. And my colleagues from Vienna, who do everything with geopositioning, and they were really impressed because it was only some centimeters off the modern definition of the geoposition, so it really was very, very precise. The couple was also friends with Carl Hårleman, the court architect who designed, for example, the interiors of the royal palace in Stockholm. And visits to Stola are documented from 1748 to 1750, and during this time Hårleman was asked to remodel several rooms in the manor house. Claes Ekeblad got a new apartment on the ground floor, which is marked in the darker blue, with a very fashionable chambre en alcôve, which is the number 7. You can see the alcove there. And his wife had her rooms on the upper floor marked in green, and then Hårleman created a new appartement de société, which is marked in red. So we have more representative functions in the layout of the house, and it changed, and they gave up this internal communication system, which was quite handy because they had these small circular staircases where the servants could reach the upper floor, and now with this appartement de société it does not exist anymore, so all the servants also had to use the main staircase. Probably it was not that bad. I don't know. Most of the Hårleman rooms show a restricted Swedish rococo, very similar to the designs for the court or other noble families. And today these rooms are furnished again, showing sometimes high quality furniture of national and sometimes even international craftsmanship. And these interiors also show this grandeur in the countryside because it was really admired by the visitors, and it was up to court standards like in Stockholm. The garden was also embellished in the time of Claes Ekeblad the Younger. 10 years after the completion of Stola manor, the estate was surveyed by the Swedish cartographer Torsten Lohm, which took the whole estate and in 2 plans, and there you have the detail with the manor house, and in the lower part is the rectangular orchard in this house, and so there were not many gardens. It was more or less a fruit garden and probably some flower gardens, but nothing very special. And it was in the time of Claes the Elder, and his son was not very satisfied, and so he also asked Hårleman to propose a new garden design in the so-called plan général around 1750, and this plan proposed a modern garden and park layout due to the latest fashion in England and France. The whole area is structured with tree-lined alleyways and a mixture of formal and landscape garden that was the fashion in the time at Central Europe, and when the transition to the English garden began in the middle of the 18th century. Somewhere in the garden, Claes Ekeblad erected a first memorial stone after Hårleman's death in 1753 for his friend, and founded the tradition of memorial stones placed in the garden, and this tradition was continued by his son later on. Stola Manor had, as you have seen, no real guest quarters left because every room was occupied, and in the main house, and so one of the small wooden pavilions you can see on an older picture in the lower half, as you described, it's like a wooden structure, the chimney in the center of the roof and so on. And it is described in the inventories of the 18th century that one of the 4 pavilions was used as a guest house. And this was obviously not sufficient for the many guests the Ekeblads received at that time, because they were, after King and Queen, they were the highest ranking couple in the state organization. So they were really noble and had also noble guests invited to their country seat. So the Swedish researcher Westring identified a design for a guest house at Stola, most likely by Carl Hårleman, another court architect of the 1760s, that shows very strong influence of in the floor plan and in the elevation, taking in French architectural theory. And I'm very sorry about this bad slide, but it's from a private collection. This is the only picture in the black and white article, and I couldn't get another and better one. But this design also would have brought modern French ideas to the countryside, and also conveying also grandeur to this remote spot. It would have been, because unfortunately it was never realized, most likely due to the death of Claes Ekeblad in 1771. So his heir, Claes Julius Ekeblad, followed the example of his grandfather and had a successful military career. During his travels in Central Europe, he became friend with Prince Carl of the royal family, the younger brother of the future king Gustav III. And the prince was sent away to hinder his love with a court maiden of the queen, Brita Horn of Ekeby Hall. And Prince Carl asked Ekeblad for help in courting her, but in the end she ended up as Ekeblad's wife. So it was quite an extraordinary love story, and due to the courting they knew each other quite well some time before they actually fell in love. And initially Claes Julius described her as difficult in his journal, so it was not really a love at first sight. And also, like Romeo and Juliet, they were children of prominent leaders of the two opposing parties at that time, the Het and the Cap party. So it really was a noted event when they married for love finally in 1775. So that was a social event of the time. And the couple actually moved to Stola, and Brita stayed there full-time with her very dominant mother-in-law, the member of the Swedish Academy. She was still alive when her husband was long dead, and Claes Julius had his duties at Stockholm, so she was in the remote countryside, and they wrote many letters, and we know much about their private lives in that time. And we know Julius' longing for his quiet country retreat. So this sketch showing the couple at Stola is his ideal of his life, but he could not realize it. The couple also started redecorating the house, and for example used a small room on the ground floor as a small dining room, and it has a remarkable decoration with cut-out prints glued directly to the wall and with painted frames you can see in the detail above. And this kind of decoration seems to have been more common than often is known, but not many of these decorations have survived. So it is a rare example of its kind and gives some kind of grandeur to Stola even today. And there were even plans for redoubling the house and for the ever-growing collections and also for the growing library. And the calculations also included building a tower, but all plans were abandoned because of the impending war with Russia. So the designs were never realized, and unfortunately only the calculations and no actual designs have survived in the National Archives, so we don't know the actual layout of the house design, which would have been really interesting to see whether they changed to another style or something like that, because it was the end of the 18th century. And the couple also continued enlarging the gardens, which is documented in a map of Anders Soderström of the 1790s on this side. And in comparison to Hårleman's ideal plan général, we can see that not much of this design has realized. The map shows a pragmatic further development of the former garden, indicated with these three arrows, and the house is the red dot, and you can see the map from 1728 and the 90s and the 50s on that side. Only one thing was really new and was created, an English garden in a modern style, and in 1790 a memorial stone for the English poet Alexander Pope was erected there, and this postament is inscribed with the universal prayer of Pope. Claes Julius was familiar with the deistic philosophy of the Enlightenment since his time in France. And Julius also created a memorial grove with memorial stones to his family and also to his late wife, who committed suicide, unfortunately, in 1791.